at 610 CKTB. At 3 minutes after 6, now it's time for Talk with Tommy on 610 CKTB. 688-2582 is the number. Call that 688-CKTB. Or you can get a hold of Tommy toll-free at 1-800-263-3645. That's 1-800-263-3645. And that is a toll-free call, except for if you're calling from Atlanta. And I got somebody on the phone here for you from Atlanta, so I can put him on right away, okay, T? You lost your button there.
There, how's that?
There we are.
Yeah, well, all right. A guy from Atlanta calling me.
Oh, yeah, you'll know who he is.
Calling me from Atlanta a year ago.
Same guy.
Right, Tommy.
Hey.
Tommy, are you there?
Hey, what are you doing?
I want to say one thing. I'd like to give you a title, Mr. CKTB. Have you been there long enough for that?
We've been here for a day or two.
Okay, my question is, who was a radio taxman in previous years, say in the 40s, late 30s and 40s? The gentleman that went around and collected a tax if you had a radio in the home.
Well, you mean the man who, to whom you paid your radio license fee in St. Catharines?
Yeah, it probably was something like about $3 or something.
Yeah.
Who knows what it was?
Well, the only one I ever knew was Colonel George Beggy.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah, how come?
Well,
was there a row or
voting up on I had access to that new book, St. Catharines, the City of Canals.
Yeah.
There's a gold mine of information in there.
Oh?
But I didn't read that particularly, but that came right out of my own memory.
Oh, I see. George Beggy wasn't in the book.
No, he wasn't, but what I envisioned, I was probably 12 or 13 years old or something when I lived over in Henrietta Street. And it seemed like when he appeared on the scene, the radio alarm went out and all the kids on bicycles went around the Western Hill area telling them, hey, the radio man is here. Turn your radios off. You'll be charged a tax or something. Was that true? Was that a true description of what might have happened?
Well, the only thing I knew was that nobody ran for cover when the colonel showed up. He was a nice gentleman. He was very active in the sports world, had a family as well active in the sports world after his military career in the First World War. And Colonel Beggy held the job for some time, and I believe eventually became the president of the St. Catharines Senior Athletics. At least he was on the executive at one time.
I see. That, you're coming up with something, and I bet a lot of the radio announcers or the radio audience knows a lot more history too. But we're just bordering on a fact that did happen in St. Catharines over the past years, right?
Oh yeah, those things I think were handed out as kind of political plums through the Depression years, and that put guys in a position where they could get out and hustle and maybe turn up a buck or two.
And support the family.
Yeah, in the Depression years where things were pretty tough. And that's how he happened. Now, what are you doing back here in St. Catharines? For the information of people listening, let me say this. This man, Bob Ely, is a former St. Catharines resident who some 46, 47 years ago played junior baseball for the Thompson Products Old Guard junior team in St. Catharines, of which I was the manager. And he was a fair sort of a sticker, and he could lean into the odd one here and there. And he had a specialty on the willow tree in left center field at Walkinshaw Park. He could park it out there, and not only that, in the daytime, but in the nighttime too.
Right next to Goring's farm there. You remember Mr. Goring had that great big green home?
You bet.
Next to the park?
You bet. And so you wound up in Atlanta, Georgia, and when you were out scouting around looking for bargains, junk shop stuff, landed in a second-hand shop in Marietta, Georgia, which is to Thorold, which is to St. Catharines, or Atlanta, what Thorold is to St. Catharines, about that far, and had a hard time to tear yourself away from a beer tray in mint condition from Taylor and Bates Brewery, you know, which used to be just down the hill from CKTB.
Yeah.
And the word got out that you had this priceless relic, and you sold it for a fabulous sum. And have you got some more lined up for the troops?
Right. You know the agent out in Jordan.
I do, yeah.
You know the agent because he knew you very well. He mentioned to me about his. In fact, he worked with you in early years when he was a youth.
Right, and he worked on the farm for us.
Right. Okay, getting back to the next question, I hope I don't monopolize this situation here.
Well, you're there.
The radio call letters of CKTB, did they have any significance? Was it named after some slogan, or have you any idea about it?
Well, there was a story went about that because it was CKTB and Taylor and Bates owner, Mr. E.T. Sandell, was the founder of CKTB, and that the CKTB letters stood for Canadians Know Their Beer.
And Canadians know T&B, Taylor and Bates. That might be another side symbol, whether that was ever bandied about or not, but that's two ways of saying it. You know, my son, he must have known about this, and I thought I knew about everything. I must be a little on the dumber side. But he brought this up to me because he knew I was going to be talking, and he hit it off exactly as how you said it.
Yeah, and, they batted things around like that, you know. And,
it was strictly advertising, right?
Yeah, sure. And things never change very much. And even today now, the brewery is gone, gave way to a highway and so on.
Yeah.
And people around here occasionally talk about where was this brewery, you know, and you say, well, it was right in the middle of the highway. And then they go taking a look around and discover where the brewery was.
Right. I can remember well because I lived across the creek in Henrietta Street. I could see it on every rainy, lightning night. The sign on the brewery, Taylor and Bates, lager, ale, and beer, or beer, lager, and ale, whichever came first. But there's a lot of nice information in this book called St. Catharines, Canada, Canal City. I just had access to it, and Frank showed me a few things about it that were very interesting, and there was a picture of E.T. Sandell on a labeled 1920 of Taylor and Bates, and I remember that name, but you probably are more familiar with it.
He was a very imposing man.
He was
big, tall, big man, and always dressed in the height of fashion for the season. Always featured white in the summertime, and was always turned out to the nth degree.
No doubt, like Connie Smythe, did he wear spats?
No, not in the...
You know what spats is?
I know what spats are, yeah. But Connie wore spats because he had cold feet. But E.T. Sandell and Connie Smythe were good friends.
They were.
One time I was supposed to interview Connie Smythe here on CKTB, and I got sick at my stomach for some reason. And anyway, Connie Smythe and Hap Day came over here, and Mr. Sandell took the two of them on the air on Rex Dimer's 645 program. Rex was out on the West Coast with the lacrosse team, and took them both on the air because the Maple Leafs were training there at the time. And Mr. Sandell was in his glory with these two famous hockey people on his radio station. He was beside himself. So it was quite an occasion.
What was one of the sayings that the Maple Leafs had when they were on the rough side? We can't beat you on the rink, we can beat them in the alley.
Well,
did you ever hear that one?
Yes, yep, if you can't beat them on the ice, you know, the story about...
a dirty shove somewhere else.
Anyway, you're going to lick them one way or another.
Right, but those are the glory days of hockey. Hockey today is a little different, but we remember it differently, don't we?
Well, we do, because the players were the game, but the game has changed a lot now. The money has got to be much more influential for the hockey picture. Now, when you're at home in Atlanta, do you run into people down there who talk about hockey and baseball and so on.
Well, there are
Canada.
reminiscences about the Atlanta Flames that went to Edmonton or Calgary. But right now there is a newer team coming along called the Atlanta Knights, but they're not of the same caliber.
Yeah, lower class, yeah.
Well, like, say, maybe
minor leaguers.
Rochester, what was that league called at one time?
The American League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an NHL.
Right. And
But let me tell you about an incident that just happened recently. Everybody knows it across America. The night that Atlanta burned the stadium.
The stadium.
There was a real, very poignant picture of two players who rushed over to have a backdrop of the flames while their picture was being taken so they could have it for a memento. But the preceding all that was the whole team was out there in batting practice. These flames were going on. The TV was watching it. Everybody was watching the flames, the fire going on, and nobody did anything. And all of a sudden, there was a large explosion, and everybody ran for cover. That was on TV, but some of the finer points they showed later when they took, and edited some of the coverage. And that one there of the two players was really outstanding. It got a great audience in Atlanta in recognition of their idea. Well, let's have this for a momentum,
Right. Well, it's certainly been a remarkable season. What are they going to say in Atlanta now that Toronto has come up with Ricky Henderson?
I think we're going to have a tough time.
You think so,
right? That's about what's going to happen, yeah. By the way, Tom, I was very lucky. My son took me over to the Blue Jays Stadium last Monday, and we enjoyed a game against Baltimore, which, of course, is the Blue Jays won.
Right.
First time I've been in the stadium, and it was a real treat to get back to Toronto, which was my hometown in a way. In the first 2 years of my life, I was born in St. Joseph's just on the Lakeshore area, somewhere near the Exhibition, somewhere, if I believe it's to be correct. But I haven't been back over there for a number of years. Usually I get up here and I like to go to the Exhibition, but I haven't taken that in for a number of years now. But I enjoy coming back home. My parents are still here. My mother's still living. And it's one of those things, it's like if you're a Port Louis boy, you're still Port boy. You're still a St. Catharines boy,
You're right.
But I enjoy it, and I'll be here till Thursday when I got to go back to Atlanta. And, of course, I'm retired now, and I got time to think of some of these things to talk to you when I get up here on my yearly visit.
Well, I still got your picture of the tray and so on, and I thank you very much for calling. And please call again. You're going to be back again. Your son, I thank him for taking you to the ballpark, because that's a great piece of education for him, too.
It was.
To see what the ballpark in Toronto was like compared to things in Atlanta. And he can appreciate the fact that there's a roof on it.
Right, Tom. You're right. And as you say, it's great to talk to you, and I'll be back in another year or shorter. I hope it isn't shorter because there might be other circumstances, but I want to say one thing. You keep well,
We'll
keep the
try.
bananas out from underneath your feet.
Right. Thank you very much, Bob Ely.
Good night.
Okay. Good night now. Mr. Ely lives in Atlanta, Georgia, just outside Atlanta, and he's the man who surprised everybody with this very, very fine beer tray, which they used to be common as anything, that he found in a secondhand store in Atlanta or Marietta, Georgia, and brought it up here, and a guy paid him a pretty fair price for it, an old friend of mine, and I don't know whether he's since sold it again, but it's something that I'll be pleased to talk about it anytime when we get the chance. In the meantime, Tom, what do you got there?
If you've long since paid off your home, it's time to reap the rewards. Good financial planning could translate into a tax-free monthly income. I'm Brian Costello. A reverse mortgage allows you to withdraw on the equity in your home while still maintaining ownership of the property. If you're a homeowner, 65 or older, you could qualify. Here's what home earnings guarantees. No change in ownership. You maintain title and you continue to reap the benefits as your home rises in value. Your income payments are guaranteed for life or the duration of the term you choose. There are no cancellation fees if ill health forces you to move out of your home. There are no payments on your mortgage for life or the term of your home earnings plan. And there's a 60-day cooling off period during which you can change your mind.
To see how a reverse mortgage can help you, call Retirement Council of Canada at 684-8880. That's 684-8880.
Well, come on, everybody. Wonderland's the one every day is such a party. Come on, it's all here at Wonderland.
Canada's Wonderland is putting on the biggest Cinco de weekend-long bash ever. It's party time every day at Wonderland with over 130 fantastic things to do. Challenge the rides, beat the games, and have a blast. Bring your bathing suit for splashboards, our 10-acre water playground, free with your passport. Get ready to rock and roll. Don't miss the 5-hour Cinco de Rock Fest tomorrow at Kingswood Music Theater with Saf Jordan, Svengali, and Harum Scarum, and the best of Homegrown 93, all free with your park admission. Plus, don't miss the Laser Zone Mission Impossible, the explosive new laser light and music spectacular, now running nightly. Catch Dwight Yoakam in concert with special guest Susie Bogus this Saturday at Kingswood Music Theater. Tickets just $9 more plus taxes and park admission. Hurry to any KFC now. Save $4 off Wonderland passports. That's up to $16 off for a party of 4. Coupons at KFC.
Come on, have all the fun at Wonderland.
The Ontario Lottery Corporation has reached the $5 billion milestone, and they want to thank you. This Civic Holiday Monday, they're paying your admission to nearly 50 venues across the province. This Monday, enjoy free admission to the Niagara Historical Society Museum, Niagara-on-the-Lake, historic Fort Erie, in Toronto, Ontario Place, Ontario Science Centre, and Hamilton's Royal Botanical Garden, to name a few. Compliments of the Ontario Lottery Corporation. You're listening to Talk with Tommy on 610 CKTB, 688-2582, or 1-800-263-3645 puts you in line with Tommy.
Thank you, Tom. Got a report on some major lacrosse scores. This is field lacrosse from Marty Cooper, and Canada East defeated Mount Washington of Baltimore 13-8 in the top group. And Canada East was led by Gary and Paul Gates. They're the 1-2 combination from British Columbia that are so prominent in the Pro Lacrosse League right now, and backed up by Ted Sawicki of St. Catharines in goal, Randy Mearns and Ron Herink, and coached by Les Barkley. The Mount Washington team came from Baltimore and succumbed 13-8. And in the other game, the Western New York Stars 8 were beaten by the Bryan Lacrosse Club of Boston 10-8, and we were a little short on time there to get more details, but certainly nice to know that the gutted stick pastime is doing well. Today, Tony Fernandes' 2-out single in the 9th inning capped a 2-run Toronto rally, lifting the Blue Jays to a 2-1 win over the visiting Detroit Tigers at the Sky Dome today. John Olerud singled in Roberto Alomar with a game-tying run. Jack Morris went the distance in improving to 6-10, and with the win, the Jays take over the top spot in the American League East Division. Now, also in the American League, home runs by Tom Lampkin, Tom Brunyansky, Darrell Hamilton, and John Jaha powered the Milwaukee Brewers to a 9-2 win over the New York Yankees. Danny Darwin allowed 1 run and 4 hits in 6 1/3 innings, and Andre Dawson homered for the second time in 3 days, leading the Red Sox to a 2-1 win over Baltimore. Also, Cleveland is at Kansas City, California hosts Minnesota, Texas in Oakland, Seattle entertains Chicago, and Chuck Carr's 2-out drag bunt single in the top of the 9th inning lifted the Florida Marlins to a 5-4 win over the Montreal Expos at the Olympic Stadium. Brian Barnes took the loss for Montreal. The Expos had come back from a 3-0 deficit for a 4-3 lead before the Marlins started their own comeback. Now, Boston, here's an odd one. How did he do this? Boston Red Sox pitcher Roger Clemens was bitten on the right thumb of his pitching hand by a dog on his way to the ballpark. You know, here, pup, there's a good pup. Bends down to pet the dog, and he chews him on the thumb. Now, on the right thumb, he's a right-handed pitcher. That's maybe going to hurt him in the immediate future for playing ball. And Clemens stopped to give aid to an injured dog on the side of the road, and that was it. He was taken to hospital for a tetanus shot and had his thumb bandaged. Now, in Mr. October, Reggie Jackson was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York today. The 47-year-old Jackson, who played with 4 major league teams, was the only inductee today. And pause a second. Kansas City Royals owner Ewing Kauffman died this morning at a ripe old age in Kansas City, and that's some of the things today. A couple of other things in the course of the end of August. Moving, the Chicago White Sox landed pitcher Tim Belcher. They figure they're real pennant contenders now because he had a July slump, but his team soured on him. The White Sox proved him wrong, and Belcher may add to the strength, and who knows, we'll see them in the World Series this fall. Now, that Ricky Henderson swap, they talk about his peculiar personality, but when he's with a good ball team, he doesn't have time for fooling around. He just plays ball because he isn't going to come in second best behind any other ball player at the star level. So those are things that are going to make Ricky Henderson a real addition to the Toronto Blue Jays, and those are just things that continue to add to the distinction of the American and National Leagues. And Gillick conceded, that's Pat Gillick, the Leafs GM, said he would have liked a pitcher, but this was plan 1A, if you will, to go this direction. He conceded that dealing for a pitcher later this year when waivers will be required would be a lot harder if the Jays traded away prospects for Henderson. He's a catalyst, said Gillick, of perhaps the greatest leadoff hitter in the game. He thinks he gives us a shot to win it, and his presence will take us to another level. And the idea was that he just stuck 160 points or more on the power of the Blue Jays at the plate in the balance of the coming season. And when you stick that kind of power at the plate, you don't have to have some guys pitching that great, because if somebody can hit, well, that's it. One here. Hi, how are you? Tom Garriock here.
Hi, Tommy.
Yes.
I'm very glad that you remembered the man that used to collect the radio licenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Beggy.
Mr. Beggy. Gosh, and I think they only cost $1. I can remember my mother having to fly around and find $1.
Oh, well, maybe she's a little short on the occasion. I always understood it was $2.50.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I'm wrong then.
No, I'm not saying you are, but I always thought it was $2.50.
Yeah. Well, I often wondered who he was, and I'm so glad that you remembered. Your program is just great.
Thank you very, very much for calling.
Right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Yes, Colonel George Beggy. And those are some of the things that help make St. Catharines a city to be loved and a great one to have had a chance to live in through the years. The baseball situation in Kansas City today, Felix Furman's 2-run double highlighted a 7-run second inning off Kansas City ace Kevin Appier today that propelled the Cleveland Indians to a 9-5 triumph over the Kansas City Royals. Appier, 11-6, who lost a 1-0 decision despite pitching a one-hitter last Tuesday against Texas, surrendered 5 runs and 6 hits in 2 innings Appier was 3-0 lifetime against Cleveland. And of course it all means that as time passes, each game gets more competitive in the Major League Baseball, and the way they go on, then we can continue to look for bigger and better things in the way that they're doing the balance of this season in Major League Baseball. Eric Woods of the United States won his second CPGA title today, taking the Ontario Open in Fort Erie. Who won the second leg of the Prince of Wales Stakes at Fort Erie today? Woods fired a final round, 1 under 71 to win by 2 shots over Steve Stricker. Craig Kamanda finished alone in third, 3 off the pace. 3 Canadians, Arden Knoll of Yorkton, Saskatchewan, Ray Stewart of Abbotsford, BC, and Norm Jarvis of Surrey, BC, all came in at 12 under par. You got that horse race? No? Well, we're getting down the line here. We're running out of time, and maybe somebody had held up the race or something, and that's why we're a little late on that one. And I couldn't find the channel selector to see the horse race on the pictures here. We're going to have to find out where they hide that equipment. But all told, I thank Bob Ely, who came from Atlanta, Georgia, to talk to us today and recall a lot of great times around the area. And when he was playing junior baseball here, if the Atlanta Braves had seen him then, they probably would have made a player out of him, because he could sure pull that old apple. But all I'm going to say now is thanks very much for being with us today. We hope we'll be with you next Sunday at the same time. So long.
You've been listening to Talk with Tommy on 610 CKTB. You can hear him every Sunday evening between 6:05 and 6:30.